Well, we've been hearing a little bit about Gilly and his adventures, and he had found the crystal egg that granted him all sorts of wishes, but the crystal egg was stolen, and the weasel, his friend the weasel, thought maybe the fox had stolen it. The weasel was right. It was Rory the fox who had stolen Gilly's crystal egg. One night, just as he was leaving Gilly's house, the moon shone full upon the crystal egg. In the turn of a hand, Rory the fox had made a little spring and taken the egg in his mouth. Then he slipped out by the door as quick and as quiet as a leaf blown in the wind. He couldn't help himself stealing the egg. When the chance came, he had had a dream about it. He dreamt that the egg had been hatched and that out of it had come the most toothsome bird that a fox had ever taken by the neck. He snapped his teeth in his sleep when he dreamt of it. The fox told his youngsters about the bird he had dreamt of, a bird as big as a goose and so fat on the neck and the breast that it could hardly stir from sitting. The youngsters had smacked their lips and snapped their teeth. Every time he came home now, they used to say to him, "Father, have you brought us the boobrai bird?" No wonder that his eyes used to turn to the crystal egg when he saw it in Gilly's house. And then, because the moon shone on it just as he was leaving, and because he knew that Gilly's back was turned, he could not help himself from making a little spring and taking the crystal egg softly in his mouth. He went amongst the dark, dark trees with the soft and easy trot of a fox. He knew well what he should do with the egg. He had dreamt that it had been hatched by the Spey Woman's old rheumatic goose. This goose was called Old Mother Hatchie, and the fox had never carried her off because he knew she was always hatching out goslings for his table. He went through the trees and across the fields toward the Spey Woman's house. The Spey Woman lived by telling other people their fortunes and reading them their dreams. This is why she was called the Spey Woman. The people gave her goods for telling them their dreams and fortunes, and she left her land and stock to whatever chanced. The fences of her fields were broken and rotted. Her hens had been carried off by the fox. Her goat had gone wild. She had neither ox nor a donkey, nor sheep nor pig. The fox went through her fence now as lightning would go through a gooseberry bush, and he came out before her barn. There was a hole in the barn door, and he went through that. And in the northwest corner of the barn, he saw Old Mother Hatchie sitting on a nest of straw, and he knew that there was a clutch of eggs under her. She cackled when she saw the fox on the floor of the barn, but she never stirred off the nest. Rory left what was in her mouth on the ground. Old Mother Hatchie put her head on one side and looked at the egg that was clear in the full moonlight. "This egg, Mistress Hatchie," said Rory the fox, "is from the henwife of the Queen of Ireland. The Queen asked the henwife to ask me to leave it with you. She thinks there's no bird in the world but yourself that is worthy to hatch it and to rear the gosling that comes out of it." That's right," said Mother Hatchie. Put it here." She lifted her wing, and the fox put the crystal egg into the brood nest. He went out of the barn, crossed the field again, and went amongst the dark, dark trees. He went along slowly now, for he had begun to think that Gilly might find out who stole the crystal egg and be vexed with him. Then he thought of the weasel. The fox began to think he might be sorry for himself if the weasel was set on his track. Rory did not go to Gilly's house the next night, nor the night after that. The third night, as he was going home from a ramble, the owl hooted at him. "Why do you hoot at me, Big Moth?" said the fox, stopping in his trot. He always called the owl Big Moth to pretend that he thought she wasn't a bird at all, but a moth. He made this pretense because he was annoyed that he could never get an owl to eat. "Why do you hoot at me, Big Moth?" said he. "The weasel's going to have your bones for his stepping stones and your blood for his morning dram," said the owl balefully, as she went amongst the dark, dark trees. The fox stopped long to consider. Then he went to his burrow and told his youngsters they would have to move house. He had them stirring at the first light. He gave them a frog each for their breakfast and took them across the country. They came to a burrow that old fellow Badger had just left, and Rory the Fox brought his youngsters into it and told them that it would be their new house. The evening after, when Rory the Fox was taking his nap, he heard one of his youngsters give a sharp cry. They were playing outside the burrow. He looked out, and he saw that his 3 youngsters were afraid of something that was between them and the burrow. He looked again and saw the weasel. "Ahem," said Rory the Fox, "and how are we this morning?" The weasel had marked one of Rory's youngsters for attack. Although Rory spoke, he never took his eyes off the youngster he had marked. "My dear friend," said the fox, "I was just going to say, if you were looking for anything, perhaps I could tell you where it might be found." "Crystal egg," said the weasel, without ever taking away his bloodthirsty gaze from Rory's youngster. "Oh, the crystal egg," said Rory the Fox. "Yes, to be sure, I could bring you at once to the place where the crystal egg is." He came out of the burrow and saw Gilly standing on the bank behind. "I think it is time for my children to go back to their burrow," said Rory the Fox. "Please excuse them, my friends." The weasel took his eyes off the youngster he had marked, and the 3 little foxes scampered into the burrow. "This way, my friends," said the fox, and he started off towards the spae-woman's house with the light and easy trot of a fox. Gilly and the weasel went behind him. They crossed a field of flax, a field of hemp, and a field of barley. They came to the broken fence before the spae-woman's house, and in front of the house they saw the spae-woman herself, and she was crying and crying. The fox hid behind the fence. The weasel climbed up on the ditch, and Gilly himself went to the woman. "What ails you at all?" said Gilly to her. "My goose, the only fowl left to me, has been taken by robbers." "Ask her where the clutch of eggs is that the goose was hatching," said Rory the Fox anxiously, putting his head over the fence. "And where is the clutch of eggs, ma'am, that your goose was hatching?" "The robbers took the nest with the goose, and the eggs with the nest," said the spae-woman. "And the crystal egg was with the other eggs," said the fox to Gilly. He said no more. He made a quick turn and got clear away before the weasel could spring on him. He ran back to his burrow. He told the little foxes they must change houses again. That night they lay in a wood, and at the first light they crossed water and went to live on an island where the weasel never came. "Where did the robbers go with the goose, the nest, and the eggs?" said Gilly of the goatskin. "They went to the river," said the spae-woman. "I followed them every inch of the way. They got into a boat, and they hoisted their sails. They rowed and they rowed, so that the hard gravel of the bottom was brought to the top, and the froth of the top was driven down to the bottom of the river. And wherever they are," said the spae-woman, "they are far from us now." "Will you come with me?" said Gilly to the weasel. "We will track them down and take back the crystal egg." "I engaged myself to be with you for a quarter of a year," said the weasel, "and the 3 months are up now, Gilly. Winter is coming on, and I must see to my own affairs." "Then goodbye, weasel," said Gilly. "I will search for the crystal egg myself, but first I must ask the woman to let me rest in the house and to give me some provision for my journey." The weasel looked up into Gilly's face and said goodbye to him. Then Gilly followed the spae-woman into her house. "O Cone," she was saying to herself, "my dream told me I was to lose my poor goose, and still I never did anything to make it hard for the robbers to take her from me." Well, in the spae-woman's house he stayed for 3/4 of a year. He often went in search of the robbers who had taken the crystal egg with the spae-woman's goose, but no trace of them nor their booty could he ever find. He met birds and beasts who were his friends, but he could not have speech with them without the egg that let him have anything he wished. He did work for the spae-woman, fixed her fences and repaired her barn, and brought brosna for her fire every evening from the wood. At night, before he went to sleep, the spae-woman used to tell him her dreams of the night before, and tell him about the people who had come to her house to have their fortunes told. I have an inlook, son of my heart, and I know that my gossip, the churl of the townland of mischance, is going to come and take you into his service. And what sort of a man is your gossip, the churl of the townland of mischance? Gilly asked. An unkind man. 2 youths who served me he took away, one after the other, and miserable are they made by what he did to them. I'm in dread of your being brought to the townland of mischance. Why are you in dread of it, spae woman? Said Gilly. Sure, I'll be glad enough to see the world. That's what the other 2 youths said the spae woman. Now I'll tell you what my gossip the churl of townland of mischance does. He makes a bargain with the youth that goes into his service, telling him he will give him a guinea, a groat, and a tester for his 3 months' service. And he tells the youth that if he says he is sorry for the bargain, he must lose his wages and part with a strip of his skin an inch wide, from his neck to his heel. Oh, he is an unkind man, my gossip, the churl of townland of mischance. And is there no way to get the better of him? Asked Gilly. There is, but it is a hard way, said the spae woman. If one could make him say that he, the master, is sorry for the bargain, the churl himself would lose a strip of his skin an inch wide from his neck to his heel, and would have to pay full wages no matter how short a time the youth served him. It's a bargain anyway, said Gilly, and if he comes, I'll take service with the churl of the townland of mischance. The first wet day that came brought the churl of the townland of mischance. He rode on a bob-tailed, big-headed, spavined and spotted horse. He carried an ash plant in his hand to flog the horse and to strike at the dogs that crossed his way. He had blue lips, eyes looking crossways, and eyebrows like a furze bush. He had a bag before him filled with boiled pig's feet. Now when he rode up to the house, he had a pig's foot to his mouth and was eating. He got down off the bob-tailed, big-headed, spavined and spotted horse and came in. I heard there was a young fellow at your house, and I want him to take service with me, said he to the spae woman. If the bargain is a good one, I'll take service with you, said Gilly. All right, my lad, said the churl. Here is the bargain, and it's as fair can be. I'll give you a guinea, a groat, and a tester for your 3 months' work with me. I believe it's good wages, said Gilly. It is. Howsoever, if you ever say that you are sorry you made the bargain, you will lose your wages, and besides that, you will lose a strip of your skin an inch wide from your neck to your heel. I have to put that in, or I'd never get work done for me at all. The serving boys are always saying, I can't do that, and I'm sorry I made the bargain with you. And if you say you're sorry you made the bargain, oh, then I'll have to lose a strip of my skin an inch wide from my neck to my heel. And besides that, I'll have to give you full wages, no matter how short a time you served me. Well, if that suits you, it will suit me, said Gilly of the goatskin. Then walk beside my horse, and we'll get back to the townland of mischance tonight, said the churl. Then he swished his ash plant toward Gilly and ordered him to get ready. The spae woman wiped the tears from her face with her apron, gave Gilly a cake with her blessing, and he started off with the churl for the townland of mischance.